how's it going? So I'm back in Barranquilla. It is February 2nd, 2023. And what I did was I went from here in Barranquilla. Well, what's this video about? Really, it's just a summary of the various trips I've taken as an expat in the last year and what some of my ongoing strategies are for living as an expat remote worker. Maybe you're retired, maybe you have some other source of income, maybe you're also a remote worker. So that's what this is about. And for those of you that already are in Barranquilla, I'll kind of give a summary of what I've been doing here. So I went down to Fortaleza. I had lived in Brazil for quite some time previously, in Rio de Janeiro, and also in Bahia, right in here. But I was recently in Fortaleza for 6 months. My visa ran out, so I needed to leave. And I've got a blog here. You can see it, Robin Fortaleza. I've got a bunch of stuff here about Fortaleza. And my present plan is kind of to be in Barranquilla and then Fortaleza, or, some other part of North Brazil, probably Fortaleza, maybe Recife. But I love these coastal areas. And then here's the thing. I wanted to really explore and look at all the options, right? So I went down to Kenya and I spent 2 months in Kenya. Okay, most of it in Nairobi, but I also went for 3 or 4 days over here to Mombasa on the coast because I love the sun, and I have a blog about that. Now I'm not going to be going back and living in Kenya. So what you see on the blog here, it's not going to increase, right? And you can learn about my thoughts for remote working and living there as an expat on the blog. And also there's links inside here. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Kenya. This is the Kenya one. This is the Fortaleza one. You can learn more about those things on those sites. I even went to Rwanda for about 2 weeks, 12 days, something like that. And I went to Tunis, Tunisia for just 10 days. And probably most instructive, I also went to Portugal for 10 days. Most instructive was being in Tunis, Tunisia, because I learned again, holy mackerel, guys, because I don't speak Arabic, I don't speak French, so it just hit me like a brick wall. You've got to know the language. I had forgotten that because I speak Portuguese and I speak Spanish, okay? And I speak Portuguese well, I speak Spanish well. So bam, I don't speak French, I don't speak Arabic, and it's a beautiful city though. Tunis, it's right on the coast. I tried, like I say, I tried down here, Mombasa. I couldn't get good internet there. But the weather here, it's very similar to Barranquilla. It's on the coast, very hot. The weather here is a little cooler, but it's always sunny, it's always sunny here. Then I went to Portugal for 10 days. And now I'm back in our friendly Barranquilla. Okay. So again, I think the most instructive part of the trip was that, down in Africa, it kind of sucks. I really like I'll admit it straightforward, that the chicks were hot in Nairobi. It is a great place. It is not a bad place for dating at all. Okay. There are many, many hot chicks in Nairobi. I will just say that. Okay. But generally speaking, living in Africa, it kind of sucks. It even sucks in Tunisia, which is slightly, and yeah, it's also probably it's okay for dating in Tunisia, but you better speak French or you better speak Arabic because they don't speak English. Okay, come on. There's a few of them. I dated a bunch of chicks there. But they by and large they do not speak English, and they don't speak Spanish, and they don't speak Portuguese. I mean, I forget what it's like not being able to communicate with these people. So you guys, the biggest takeaway is, if you're going to be living on a long-term basis in South America or Central America, the Caribbean, you need to learn Spanish or Portuguese, as the case may be. And I mean, anyone who tells you that, oh, Portuguese is so different, they obviously haven't really mastered either Spanish or Portuguese, because about 80% of the words are cognates. A cognate is a word that really is essentially the same word in two languages, and they sound nearly the same. It's like información and información, or information and información. See, that's a cognate between all three of those languages, right? So, here's the deal. You've got to know the language. Otherwise, you've got to put in the effort to become somewhat fluent in the language. Otherwise, I don't see how you'd function. I can't understand how you would consider doing that, living in a foreign country and not being relatively fluent in the language. And what's relatively fluent? I mean, first of all, take the top 2,000 words, you recognize them automatically. All the basic grammar structure: simple past, simple present, simple future, simple, maybe the perfective, like, at least in the present, like, I have seen it, or I will have seen it. I had seen it before I went to David's house, right? The perfective tense. You don't need the passive voice, or you probably don't even need the subjunctive, right? Although it would be good to have it would be good to be able to recognize and understand the subjunctive in Spanish and Portuguese, at least. And then you're going to also need to have all your basics, like your prepositions and definite and indefinite articles and how those are different. When I mention those verbs, the simple past, simple future, etc., of course that includes the conjugation, right? That's what I'm speaking about when I mention those, when I speak about that. And probably the top 500 most common words of the language, you need to have those on the tip of your tongue. Those need to be memorized well enough so that you can pull them out in a live speaking context. So it takes a little effort, and you're going to have to do that. You can do it too. Okay, so that's the main takeaway that I got. Because remember, in Kenya, they speak English. And actually, most of them kind of do in Rwanda, but less so. Rwanda sucks, by the way. But in Nairobi, you can get really fast internet, and you can get pretty much all the good stuff that one would like to have. The thing is, it's not very nice still. I learned a lot about that. And yeah, I'm not really that interested in living in those places long term. Portugal sucked a little bit because, not because of the language. I can speak with them, no problem. But here's the deal. I went there in January, and just recently, and it was cold and rainy. Okay? It was cold and rainy for most of the time. I would say about 80% of the days of 10 days were cold and rainy. Not really cold, not like, the northwest of the United States cold in the winter, but I thought it kind of sucked, and it was all cramped and crowded. I have another video about that on my, here it is. If you want to know when I compare Brazil and Portugal, you can come over to this thing here, and you can see what I think about that. I have separate YouTube channels for those, etc. Okay, guys, have a good one.